Welcome back to the Ali Bond Show, uncensored, unfiltered. Now, what is the greatest thing a woman can do in business? Get bloody wilder. Welcome to the show, Tina.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Tina is a business mentor, an author, a disruptor of the norm. You're loud and proud, and you've just been nominated as in the top 10 business voices globally.
Thank you. Yes.
So I guess sitting here beside me is your first book. And when I first saw the title and I saw corporate rewilding, I thought, what the fuck is corporate rewilding? So can you take us through, I guess, the title, the meaning of that?
I'd love to. I had an argument with my editor at the time and said, what on earth is that meant to be? It's a pattern interrupt and it goes against the standard norm that we're supposed to be, play nice, be in all the places, play demure. And by rewilding, we're taking a bit of a stand to go, you know what? I can do life and business on my own terms. It doesn't mean I have to adhere to every rule that mankind has ever laid upon us. And I deliberately picked an image where I go, what has that to do with corporate? Because it gets the cogwheels going. And I said, well, that's the image I want, because that was the photo shoot for me when I broke out of corporate, and we'll get into that reason why a little bit later. It was like a battle cry to go, you know what, life, everything is out there. My most inner secrets are in these pages. Throw whatever you have at me, but I'm doing me. I'm not playing small anymore. I'm not going to be quiet. And funnily enough, I had a speaker coach tell me, you can't possibly wear pink speakers and use fuck on stage, ever. And I go, well, I wouldn't be showing up authentically. So my passion is to have women going, you know what? I've never thought about that. I can be a little wild, because rewilding and being wild means you're returning something to its original state.
Absolutely.
And that's all of it.
So then you would love my recently gifted chuck it in the fuck up bucket, because I really believe in the power of the word of fuck, and it irritates a lot of people, including familiar members of mine, and the frequency of it. Yep. But you can only be yourself because everybody else is taken. But really keen to dive into the reasoning behind the book, because when I read this book, and I've got the attention span of a bloody ant, for me to complete a book at all is quite a task. But I literally, from the first page to the very end, was captivated by every single page and the content. And so without revealing all to listeners or viewers, can you talk us through the reasoning behind the book and the what you wanted to leave readers with, I guess?
The reasoning for me was a wake-up call for women to understand that you can change your life. It's never too late. I turned 50 last year, and that's a whole other dimension to it. But all of the things that I describe in my book happened almost over a decade ago. And at the time, I didn't know what that was I was going through. And in hindsight, I realized all the things that you strive for is often not something that actually, A, makes you happy, and B, it may not even it's your own aspiration. It was stories, keep up with the Joneses, get the house, the child, the corner office, the perks in business. So I ended up being a general manager, but behind the scenes, I was deeply unhappy. And it wasn't until I was trying to have a baby that I realized I can't control everything. So I sadly learned the hard way that living in constant stress, chronic fatigue, sent me down a path of adrenal fatigue, anxiety, depression, and sadly 5 miscarriages.
Wow.
Trying to hold it together. And I didn't realize that was trauma. So somewhere in that part was something in me that said, you know what, one day I'll write the story in honor of my unborn rainbow babies. And there were times when I couldn't even speak about that. But the more I started to share my story, the more I realized, wow, so many other women are having the same experience. And at the time I was really angry about the terminology around that. I wanted to change the narrative. I lost a pregnancy. No, I lose my keys, but I don't lose a pregnancy. So that was the tip of the iceberg. And I guess the universe had a funny sense of humor, because I vowed never to have to do anything with publishing, because my career was in publishing at that time. And it was knocking me on the door and on the shoulder going, you got to have to write this book.
So you and I literally, we've had like 2 degrees of separation perhaps in terms of connection from back in those days for you.
Yeah.
And I can attest to sharing similarly, being in that big GM role, driving a great Lux set of wheels. And behind the scene, for me, life was pretty horrendous, and putting on that mask to the outside world. And I'm fabulously 53, so you've got a couple of years to catch up on me, sweetheart. But now I don't give a fuck. And what you see is what you get. Life is too short for keeping up appearances. And so the book, I got into the first few pages, and then I'm feeling a bit emotional myself actually with what you're actually you're sharing, as your journey really began back in Germany, where even culturally things were quite different, I think, for men and women, even more so than here in New Zealand.
Yeah, I think we don't realise that in New Zealand we have a lot more opportunities based on what I used to go through. I come from a remote place. The next biggest town has 250,000 people live there. But the hierarchy in German companies was very much designed for men to get into middle management and even leading positions. There was rarely any women. And because you have childbearing age, there are a set of HR rules at the time that play a big part. They have to keep your job often a lot longer than here. So if you're in your mid-20s, you can be a receptionist, a secretary to the CEO, typing from dictaphone all day and all that carry on. And I realized that's not me. I'd like to do other things. I was really, really taken by export and exhibitions and travel. And luckily I had my first wild woman, as I call her, show me a few ropes on that you can play outside those coloured lines. But boy, was there pushback when you sort of play on that and go, why do I need to do that? Just because I'm female? When I came here and I go, oh my goodness, that was like a breath of fresh air. And anyone who complains, while it's not all rosy here, I always say, well, I challenge you to work for 6 months in a German family-owned business and we'll talk again.
So what took you from Germany to New Zealand in the first place? Was it a job?
It was a job. At the time, I was actually moving to Dubai. That was the place I wanted to be. And obviously, it was a great place. I was young, and things weren't happening as fast as I had hoped. And then, out of a sudden, the export company said, "Well, I know a client in New Zealand, and they moved from Wellington to Auckland. Well, why don't you go to New Zealand?" And I go,
"Oh wow,
wow!" It was on a bucket list.
So how old were you?
25.
25, and no connections here at all, just on a wing and a prayer and a suitcase or two?
I watched the Air New Zealand VHS tape at the time, that's how long ago it was, of the New Zealand travel destination, and it was always on the list to go to. And at the time I thought, well, one day I will get to New Zealand. And when they offered me the job, I decided that's me, that's what I'm going. I knew the CEO and the accountant at the time. And that was it.
And so how was your English? Because back when you're 25.
It was very good because I was using it at work. But what I didn't realise is the accent threw me. And I arrived here going, what language is that? I thought I was pretty good in English. But what I really, really found hard was there's obviously a lot of cultural perks that you wouldn't have a clue about because you didn't grow up here. The way you guys have winter and the weather, some of the cultural things you guys do is like odd to me. And it's not being able to express yourself the way you would normally do it. I couldn't be witty or funny. There's a couple of hilarious ways of how I put my foot in over the years, but... And
you found that from Germany coming to New Zealand, that you found us less humorous?
Not less humorous, but a different sense of humour.
Okay.
And you guys are very relaxed, and yes. Germans tend to be a little uptight.
Yes.
Standing jog, you go into the basement to have a laugh,
yes.
Until you really make friends with people, and then they let you in. But it's a completely different field.
So you come on a work visa.
Yep, came on a work visa,
and then you meet a lad, you meet a great looking lad.
Yep,
and fall in love.
Yes.
Yeah, and then talk us through from falling in love with this and your hubby, because I hear he's got a bit of a travel background too.
He has a background. He was playing rugby league in southern France, in Carcassonne. He was here on leave. It was before Christmas in 2000. And we crossed eyes in a bar in Parnell. I'd like to make up some romantic thing, but it started like that. And we kept crossing each other at the gym, and one thing led to another, and we started dating. And the cultural difference, he's Tongan. I'm German, so go and figure we should be put into a petri dish and studied. And
Classic.
I stayed. So here I am, 25 years later. And
how have you found those cultural differences over the years? Because that, even going from like an Australian to a Kiwi, there's a slight difference, and so yeah, but you've knocked that out of the park somewhat.
humorous, challenging, and I think over the years we sort of ruffled feathers, but also managed to meet in the middle, because we realized a lot of the things that used to be a bone of detention in the early stages of dating was actually cultural background. So when he actually went to Germany and had a look how I grew up, and then I went to Tonga, things were a little bit more clear. So now we can laugh about certain things. The thing that still drives me a little bit insane every so often is being not on time, because obviously it's in my DNA to be on time.
Yes.
We ring people, like if you're 2 minutes late, you ring and apologize. Here in New Zealand, it tends to have a 20-minute lag time, but when you go to Tonga, it's like the afternoon.
There's no time.
No,
Yeah, it's like
island time.
It's like Fiji time.
I know. So that's been a bit tricky for me to get used to.
And so, what did you find the hardest challenges in those early years of those? What were those cultural differences? Was it the way you communicated? Was it beyond just the time frustrations that you had? Were his family quite accepting of you coming from Germany?
No, they were not accepting at the time, because he was married to a Kiwi before, and obviously the pressure was on to perhaps get married to somebody from their own culture. I'm very stubborn, very persistent, so it was, and they're very, very lovely people. They're very softly spoken. We tend to be a little bit more blunt. What you see is what you get. So that is not always well received,
So
put it that way.
how have they accepted a self-proclaimed disruptor in the building and in the family?
They didn't have a choice. So my husband always, he's actually quite a bit of a somebody who has been going against the grain, I guess, himself. And he has a heart of gold. And it works. Still works, so.
So what was the wedding like? And Tonga, don't they have huge weddings?
They did, and he had that the first time round.
Okay.
So that ship passed me by. We actually flew to Vanuatu, to a beautiful little resort on the main island, and we took the 2 witnesses and 2 of our friends, and that was it.
Is it right? I went to Vanuatu. Oh my gosh, my youngest is 9, so she was 3 weeks old, and it coincided with a coup, a political coup.
Oh dear!
And so my time in Vanuatu was not memorable for the good reasons, I guess. And so you do your getaway wedding. Was there kickback from the family over that?
No, because we have them all scattered across the globe. My
Yes.
father was not well at the time, and if I would have invited some people from my family, then that would have opened the floodgate from the other side. And where do you draw the limit? I mean, there are no small functions in Tongan culture. Even small celebrations, they don't exist. So we decided, look, at the end of the day, it's our wedding. I'm not somebody who matches the tie to the outfit and all that hoo-ha. I just wanted to be on the beach. I wanted to have frangipanis in my bouquet. It's my favorite flower. And it was nice because the boys were sitting in the pool and having drinks until like an hour before the reception, while me and my girlfriend, we were having the hair done and, all the things. And it was nice.
Fabulous. And so at this point in time, are you in a sales role still?
I was, yes.
And then the sales role moves into management after, was it the same company?
No, I started in roading, of all things.
And roading.
Yeah, I know. The company that I was...
Wow.
I know.
And infrastructure roading.
No, license plate manufacturing. I was, the German company I used to work for did the machine equipment, and the client that I started working for here, they had the contract to do the license plates.
Okay.
From the blanks. So
Yes.
that's how I ended up in that industry, and it was nice. And then we gone into a bit of tunnel lighting with LEDs on the road and a bit of that. And then I decided I wanted to go into publishing. I'm a writer. I always loved all of that. And then I made the jump into publishing, and that's when things really started to get very interesting for about a decade.
Yeah, so publishing's a bit like the media in some respects, a bit of glitz and glamour on the outside, and sometimes on the inside, not so much so.
Yeah.
And so I read in the book that you had some fairly large challenges actually with a boss that behaviour was quite compromising and belittling, and that was coinciding with you working through pregnancy and loss, and can you share more about that what must have been horrid time for you?
At the time, I guess I was so deep ingrained in, functioning and carrying on and hardening up. I was a completely different person at the time. I didn't even acknowledge the fact that going through 5 pregnancy losses was in fact a trauma on my body and the stress. Obviously, media is fast-paced. They play hard. And the GFC hit. And that obviously media and publishing was not a good place to be. And I guess true colours came out, and unfortunately the environment was so toxic. I didn't even know what narcissistic personality disorder was at the time. And because I was in a different mindset back then, I didn't think I have an option. And it pains me to admit that I thought I had no choice to leave because I needed to make the income happening, and I couldn't possibly leave and do other things. I call it corporate Stockholm syndrome. I was literally terrified of what he may do if I choose to leave, because it was not a good place to be. And in hindsight, I realize I should have left way, way earlier. But that's part of why I'm sitting here today, why this book was birthed, because of my own journey of reclaiming myself. And also admitting that I was a willing participant in some of these antics and paid the price for it.
I think you've really highlighted a valid point there, because I was married to a formally diagnosed, not early diagnosed, but a formally diagnosed narcissist with borderline personality disorder, and as life's travelled beyond that relationship, I've had to go back and think, well, look, I stayed there, so I played a part in it, and so when you're caught up in it, it's this vicious cycle, and it's a bit like flight or fight mode on the daily. And so, I commend you for working through that and having the courage, because eventually it took courage to leave. I think it takes courage to stay sometimes too, in these horrible spaces. But you had your aha moment of it's time to leave. I'm not going to live like this anymore. So what preempted that?
It was a final straw one morning. I had my last pregnancy loss was rather traumatic, because I got to the point where you get a special screening when you've gone through 3 consecutive ones.
Yes. So, by the way, you can actually drink on the show.
It's okay. It's
actually illegal.
I'm having a hot flash in the studio with the thank you to menopause, so I might leave that till a little bit later, otherwise I melt. It was a final straw. I was in my office. I overheard someone in the corridor speaking, and I had to opt for a DNC for the last pregnancy, because they told me there was no heartbeat from 1 week to the other. And I felt like a walking coffin at the time. And I can't mentally go through this anymore. My dad was about to come over, which was his last trip to New Zealand, because he had terminal cancer. Oh, wow. So I tried to keep it together, and I couldn't deal with it at the time. So the DNC was something altogether mind-boggling. And I overheard someone say in the corridor, well, the last time that happened, she didn't take as much time off.
Oh, gosh.
So that was like, I was lost for words at that time. And I go, you know what? No. And I walked out, got an employment lawyer, because it was the tip of the iceberg of what's been bubbling up for several years. And it's the best money I've ever spent. And I was free.
Let's take it back to a second to miscarriage and loss, because it's a subject that is I guess it's been spoken about far more freely in recent years than it once was. And I remember my very first pregnancy, and this will probably be a surprise to my family members. I actually terminated because I was so young, and then I couldn't get pregnant, and so I felt like I was being punished for making a decision that wasn't right for me at the time. And then I remember going for that, I think it was like a 6 or 8 week check, and there being no heartbeat. And you know, by then, because I'm so impulsive, I told everyone I was pregnant, and I remember the impact was massive, and the grief was significant, and wherever I looked, I remember after the DNC, and the obstetrician saying, "Ellie, you'll be good to go again. This happens frequently," and me thinking this is punishment for something I did years ago. But wherever I went, for some reasons, I just saw babies or pregnant women. They were just more prevalent because of that loss. And did you find it similar?
I resonate a lot with what you said, and you would remember the guilt pangs that you get and the grief where you go, yeah, well, maybe I wasn't deserving. For me, it was like my body failed me. It was literally, I am not good enough to carry this through. And as I understood some of the reasonings, because my big question at the time was, why does it keep happening? I had one before I had my son. I didn't realize he was going to be our miracle child. And first pregnancy, I think I was 37. You don't think, you skip over that chapter. It's just not going to be me. I'm healthy. I'm young. I was unprepared, and I couldn't understand. And then the consecutive ones, you didn't think it was going to happen another time and another time and another time.
Did you find that because you'd had a child, that the sympathy was lessened than had you not had a child, that there were people that actually blurted out, well, at least you've got a child, when really grief is grief, whether you've got a child or not?
I could write another book just on unsolicited advice that people give you, which is very insensitive. For us, it was, no, you can hurry up. You have to have the second one.
No, you just chuck that in the whakapaka.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
what you do.
happily doing that. And I think it took me a while to actually acknowledge that I had unacknowledged grief for so many years. People don't see it's real. And even in my relationship, you can take a guess how hard that can be on a marriage, especially someone who comes from a culture who has big families.
Yes, and big families is the norm, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So there was so many random comments at family gatherings where you go, so you better hurry up, and you still only have the one, you poor woman. It was difficult at the time.
So what was the lowest moment with you and hubby over that time? Because we men and women, we just behave differently, or the way we absorb things is quite different. And often men go to the hills and say nothing, and us women just want to talk about it. What was it like for you, the two of you?
I think having to make the decision for what was best for my physical and mental health at the time, I couldn't go through that anymore. Even the third and the fourth pregnancy, because getting pregnant was never an issue, but keeping the pregnancy, I couldn't be joyful about a positive pregnancy test anymore. There was worry right from the get-go. And then the thing you go over your head, which you probably would relate to, like, have I done something to cause this? And all of the mind cinema that happens when you go down those rabbit holes. I eventually came to the conclusion that I'm going to be content and happy that I have one child, but I had to go and preface that and say, look, this is it. I'm not going to try another time, and that was hard. And sometimes it is really, I guess, surprising for me that we managed to get through that, because I know a lot of people don't, because this is such a huge deal breaker at the end of the day. And also, if you can't find common ground to make each other understand what that felt like, and someone who doesn't have ovaries, I'm sorry, a different game.
So how was a different culture reacting to this? Your husband's family, how were they reacting to the likelihood that there was going to be less grandchildren? Was there any kickback from them or from your partner? Was there any moments where he just was like, this is just too much for me, I want more kids? I've heard of this before, actually, in relationships where someone's been really adamant that they actually want more than the one child, and there was a reference to that.
I tried to find the right moment to talk about that, and
how do you find the right time to talk about?
You don't.
About that?
There isn't any.
Yeah.
But I was stirring over at one time, and I said, look, I'm going to draw the line here. And then what turned into a bit of a heated argument, eventually he threw a comment at me and said, well, if you can't give me another child, I will find a woman who can. And that was very difficult to get back from that. He didn't mean it, and at the minute the words came out, he realised, oh, shit. But that cut deep, and it took us a while to get back from that.
So how did you get back from that?
Time. Trying to have, I guess, time to get over the resentment from both sides, because he was resenting me for the decision. I was resenting him for not understanding what a woman actually goes through. It was 2.5, 3 years of, good to go again. You wait 3 months and then you can try again. It was just up and down and up and down. And those hormones, everything that's with it, you can't have the joy. I mean, there was times in my company where I hid in the bathroom because someone had a baby shower. I could not look at a woman with a child or a pregnant belly when there's a baby shower, and that's difficult. And you touched on that earlier.
Yeah.
It's the thing.
I remember that period, and it was just really wherever I went, it just was like illuminated that all these other women are having babies, and for whatever reason, you've lost yours, and I went on to have my first son, and then 2 more sons, and then after that, with a new partner who wanted children with me, there were 3 consecutive miscarriages. And the first one was, I wasn't too attached, to be fair, because at that point in time I felt that my load was pretty full. The second one went further in duration, and then they wanted it to be delivered and then dropped for doing like an analysis.
Biopsy,
and so I had to drop it. It was Saturday morning. I had to drop it into the North Shore Hospital, and it was in a brown bag. And the receptionist was said, well, I don't want it like that. And it was, sorry about the table. And anyway, and I just was so taken aback. I actually went and put it in the bin. I was just emotionally distraught, and having her say, we don't want that, it was just unfathomable.
Yeah.
And so loss is in this area is just so common.
It is. And I was thinking at the time, where are these women? Why are they not speaking up about it? And it is because we're often trapped by the medical system, for starters, because they tell you, oh, don't tell anyone until you're over the 12-week mark. But then we're even more trapped because only our partner, sometimes our mother or our sister may know. And then no one actually knew that that's what you've just gone through. Hence, you're keeping everything bottled up until eventually someone is going to say something really insensitive. And I had times from wanting to throttle someone, screaming at somebody, or being really rude because I was over those comments. And I realized that unless you know what goes through someone's head, you'd be better keeping those comments to yourself.
Because you never know what someone else is going through behind closed doors. I'm a big believer of that.
They make assumptions and then they act on it, and that can be really painful. It's like, well, take a knife and stab it one more time. So it's not an easy thing, and I made it my mission then to go, I'm going to speak up about it. And that's how my coaching career started, by holding space and opening up a container for women who experience loss to go, let's just talk about all the gory details and everything, because let nature take its course. You would relate to that. It's not a pretty process. And you can't talk to someone about it unless you've been through it.
And so the leap of faith, you leave a very well-paid job in an industry that you love. There was travel, lots of glitz and glamour, and then you're back. You've gone through your legal process, which I imagine included some form of settlement, and then there must have been an aha moment of, I am going to get into coaching, start really public speaking and disrupting this Auckland environment and speaking loudly and not just in Auckland but going global with your voice.
There was a bit of a lag in between, because when I came out of it, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was in free fall. I had to find my identity. I was no longer the general manager of XYZ. So when someone asked me, who are you? I go, oh, fuck, I don't have an answer to that, because there was no title to hide behind. And I went into doing cakes for a while. I had a boutique cake company called Sugar Coated. So that was my happy place.
Oh, fabulous.
That was, I didn't have to leave home. I could just hunker down, do my things.
There's no cake here today, Tina.
No, I've done enough cakes, and I've been up to my elbows in chocolate cake for years. But it was at the time really healing, because it was something creative, something I always wanted to do. Something that I could do from home, so when my son was younger. But then I realized at the end to go, there's something in there, because I realized that part of the reason why I stayed so long in that toxic workplace was because of my own, I guess, demons at the time, skeletons in the closet, where I had a really deep-rooted belief of being too much, on being not good enough, and that I had to go and look for validation on the outside, and that was hard.
So when you say too much, what does too much look like for you, or feel like for you?
I was always a very wild child. I was always boisterous. I did the opposite of what everyone else does. And my mum still laughs and says, you know what? You used to be someone who used to put their head down and go straight to the wall. You have never done the path of least resistance. But then you spend a lot of time wondering, well, why can't I just, settle down and marry the high school sweetheart and do what everyone else does? And it's not from a place of arrogance, but from a true sense of, but I want to do this, I want to travel, I want to have a horse, and I want to do things differently. And then I realized, wow, I can't do this with a cake company. And eventually you get over making cakes. And I started...
Depends on the ingredients.
It depends on the ingredients, yes. And then I realized when I was starting to toil with the idea of a book that I had so much knowledge, and I wanted to do things differently. And then I realized there's a lot of women who've gone down a similar path that have stopped their corporate careers, and I go, I'm going to do my own business. It's easy. I've ran a company of 80 people. How hard can it be?
It's not fucking easy.
Nope, because it's just you. And you know what? The being fully seen and unapologetic wild woman that I now embody, that takes courage, because you leave yourself open to judgment, to not being liked. But that's a vibe.
Absolutely, it's a
So
vibe.
there's the old paradigm. We're going to throw that in a fuck it bucket.
Yeah.
Because we can be all that we want. And if I want to run in a pink jacket and go to a Metallica concert all in the same day, who cares? That's what I do.
Absolutely. And, I'm going to ask you, do you feel like you're too much more for men than you are for women? Because I feel like there's this growing movement of women that is similar, where we are who we are, we've arrived, and it is what it is. Take it or leave it. And do you think that men are taking a little longer to catch up with that?
I don't think so. I think they admire a strong woman, but I would say that some may do not know how to, I guess, handle is the wrong word, how to match up. And I'm going to quote Carrie Bradshaw, which is my favorite TV show at the time.
Yes, mine too.
It is, eventually you find someone wild enough to run with. And my husband leaves me the way I am, and he doesn't try and change me. He does have opinions and tries to go, should you really say that loud? But it's always been my nature, someone thinks something and I'm the one that comes out with it. And people go, did you just say that? I said, fuck yes, I did.
Yeah, you did.
Because I have got, I guess, no filter comes with an acknowledgement that I'm not everyone's cup of tea. But that's fine.
I'd rather be champagne.
That's enough.
There you go.
But you can, you walk into a room with people and you either click instantly or there's something like, no, I don't know them. Yeah. And I stopped trying to make it palatable for me to like people. I either do or I don't. Simple.
Have you found that as you've healed and you've worked through trauma and you've become, I guess, unapologetically you, that you've got a sense of others that you didn't have before? So that in a room of maybe 10 women, you may see something that you just know is not genuine, and you just go, it's not for me. That you may not have had the power to do previously.
I would have shriveled, and I never wanted to be center of attention. So the whole speaking thing has been not an easy road, because a few years ago, if someone would have said, you're going to go and be on a stage, I go, not take the drill, put a hole in my knee, I'm not doing it. But eventually your mission and your passion becomes bigger than your own path and story. And I find I'm kind of the anti-networker, because don't give me this blah blah and I'm such and such and I have this title and that accolade. I want to have the real. I want to have the real person. I want to know who you are, and that's when conversations become really interesting. And that's what I live for, having the real talks. I'm not interested in curated fluff. I want to know who you are and what you do. And I like the fact that I can hold, I guess I'm grounded in who I am. I see women look at me and say, oh God, I can feel the judgment coming. I was like, I know why you're triggered, and why you feel judged is because you haven't admitted that there are some parts that you would like to have within yourself that you see in me.
True.
And then you go, I know how you, I've been you. And it's the same with my coaching. I sometimes, woman in tech recently, you look at the Zoom screen and you go, wow, there's no one home. Hollow shells. And then you realize, wow, I used to be that woman. And that's when you can go, you can tell me all things you like, but this and this and this, if you're honest with yourself, I'm onto something with it. You're just afraid to actually let it out and I guess the fuck it bucket again. But I think there is a thing called applied sisterhood, which I love, where you actually collaborate instead of trying to dominate or outdo each other. Because this elbow thing and this competing is just so exhausting.
I use the saying that, you know, competition is at the bottom and collaboration is at the top.
Yeah.
And if you're not collaborating, then you're back in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's still happening. I mean, women get a seat at the table. And I guess New Zealand has a lot less layers in senior management than the US or Europe has. And it would be nice to sometimes still foster those who are younger and who are coming up through the ranks, because you're not going to be a good leader when you're wondering whether someone can take your job. You will. It's a different mindset, and I think it's time we all take a good look at it, which is rewilding a little bit as a mindset in these positions, where we can grow together and not having to boot each other out of the boardroom.
There's room for us all, and I'd agree with that. Have you worked with men at all?
I've had probably 3 decades of my career mostly with men, and at the time I used to prefer that because I found women bitchy.
I meant more in terms of the coaching.
All right.
Yeah.
No, not so much, because it's I do help men write their books, and that's a whole different avenue that recently landed in my lap. However, it is something intrinsically female. Oh, this is not good enoughness, and the people pleaser, the good girl, and I think that's my lived experience.
So a coaching package with you, is it a 3 month, 6 month? Does it vary according to individual and how they're?
It depends. I do run small groups. I don't believe in big group programs because it loses some of the potency. My work is predominantly one-on-one, and I usually work with very high-achieving women in sort of C-suite executive in their 40s and 50s to really bring them back to life and work on some of the conditioning. I had a client who was a lawyer, and she said, wow, I didn't realize I never wanted to be one. And she was 53. And I go, wow. So she actually said that, and she goes, come to think of it, my father was a lawyer and it was in the family, so there was never a discussion that I wanted to do something different. And she said to me, I wanted to be an equine therapist.
Wow.
So I've lived 3 decades successfully, but we often make those decisions based on conditioning or other people's stories instead of what our passions are. And for myself, I've gone through it, and you can be all the change you want, but it takes courage, and you will ruffle some feathers and look at some of your own shit that is not as pretty. But once you're through that, no one can stop you.
So you wear a lot of pink, and so do I. And is there a reason why you choose pink? Because I notice it with some really powerful women, actually, that there's this a lot more pink appearing, like blazers and yeah, so
there's a specific reason, because it's a rebellion against the beige, the navy, and the black and grey power suits that were, roaming the corporate arena, and still do. But I used to be very much in my masculine energy, and because I worked in male-dominated industries a lot, you would have not found anything colourful. Certainly not pink. I was the anti-Barbie kind of. And I realized, wow, it was a part of me I denied. I actually love the color bright neon pink. And I go, wow, that's part of my brand now.
So what's on your t-shirt?
Feminist AF.
Yeah. So
It's by a Kiwi designer, Amanda Billing, designs these t-shirts. And the
Yes.
minute I saw that, and I go, oh, fuck yes.
yeah, absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And so, if you had any advice to somebody that's going to be watching or listening, and they're stuck in a job, they're stuck in a rut, they're maybe in their 30s or 40s or 50s, and they are feeling that they are too much and that the environment is shutting them down, what would you recommend that they do?
Take a trip down memory lane and look at why you have those beliefs in your head. And 9 times out of 10, it goes back to our formative years between 1 and 7. And because of, social media and everything we're exposed to each day, I guess it suits the system, for a better word, that we are so much engulfed in, trying to be different or improving the way we are, that we lost some spark. And having lost the courage to actually show up just the way we are. I deliberately often do a live on Instagram in my bathrobe in the morning, because I call it my bathrobe musings, and people go, oh my God, you're destroying this and that and you can't show up like that. And I go, says who? This is authentically me. And
I love it.
being who you are is so freeing. It's the biggest radical act of revolution that you can do for yourself. And then you're going to have to look at, are you strong enough to hold that in your field, where you can say, I don't care if someone likes me, if I ruffle someone's feathers, I'm just being me, and try stop me.
And so how's your son cope with the evolution of his mum? Because you've obviously gone from being more passive to being more loud and proud. And has he actually acknowledged that? And because I think you're setting him up for an amazing future in terms of a relationship that he finds one day by witnessing your journey.
He's turning 15 in July, so he's still quite young, but he doesn't know any different. And we have a very balanced partnership at home when it comes to chores and things like that. So he doesn't know any different, and he's very in tune with what's going on. We've never done, the baby talk. He's a very level-headed young boy.
What's the baby talk?
When you don't explain, you do da da, the thing when you have little kids, instead of trying to be a little bit more mature.
Oh fuck! I've never done that. I have never done that, and it has been. I've been an enigma as a mother in that space, because it just wasn't made, and never went to an antenatal. Said I'm not doing it. Refused to. Read one book, and thought I'll fumble my way through this, and the amount of looks I've been shot over the years, or judgment, chuck it in the whakabucket.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's your choice, and I couldn't be any more proud of him, because he's grown into a discerning and
there you go,
and level-headed young man, and he's an interesting mix, obviously being half Tongan, half German.
Gorgeous mix.
I know, and he's going to. He inherited a bit of my stubbornness, but the same way he's got some of the relaxing traits of his dad. So we don't know where he's going. He wants to be a pilot, so everything is about planes at the moment.
It's a good career.
Yeah,
we've actually missed out a very, very valuable part of your being and your passion, which is you're a black belt karate queen.
I am.
So when did that start?
Oh, many years ago. That was before I had children.
That needs to be like front and centre of CV.
It was a little bit of a rebellion, because at the time my dad was into karate, and it was the 70s and 80s. Women and children were not doing karate. It was a very different, very harsh style of doing martial arts. And I go, well, I'm going to give it a go. I always wanted to do karate, and I joined a karate club. Then paused through all my fertility things, and I did my black belt grading at 45.
Wow.
And I popped my public speaking bubble, or fear for being centre of attention, when my sensei said to me, by the way, you're going to Japan with us this year, and you're going to have to enter a competition. So you'll be in a stadium in Japan, and you'll be doing karate, and also you'll be doing sparring with your age division.
Oh,
so
wow.
I was terrified. I was literally about to go and, So that was something different. And once you've done that, you go, you know what? Nothing can faze me. I stepped out in the birthplace of karate and I thought I'm going to make a fool out of myself and just did me. I had a beautiful coach from Australia who looks a bit like Danny DeVito, very passionate Italian.
Oh, wow.
And he said, just keep doing what you're doing. And next minute, I thought I was out. He goes, no, come back. I said, what do you mean? You made it through the round. So I ended up walking away with the silver medal in my division. And it's a good skill to have. My sensei laughs about it and she said, well, we're actually equipping you with the appropriate self-defense techniques to back up your big mouth. So that might come in handy.
Brilliant. I might need you as a bodyguard. There you go.
It's the no that's the biggest thing. And people always think when you do self-defense or teach women skills like that, the first thing we actually do is allowing them to say no with conviction. And I work a lot with the body and the voice by being able to stand and embody your brand and all that. You want to draw your no from here. When I say no, it pins you against the wall because it comes from here. Like it's a skill to have that could save your life. And a lot of women freeze. And it's an interesting one. And I guess it comes back to not being too much, not being too loud, and being the nice girl.
Keep being too much and keep being too loud.
Yep.
So how long did it take you to get the black belt?
Oh, it's been a 10-year journey.
Yeah.
So
And any accidents along the way?
not in karate. I've tripped down my back stairs twice in the garden and had a femur broken and a tendon done. It would have sounded a lot better if I'd said I'd leveled someone with a spinning roundhouse kick, but silly things like that. I keep telling my husband, housework's dangerous, honey.
So is he fit? Is he into karate too? Or is it that just a you thing?
No, it's a me thing. My son tried it for a few years, didn't probably like that he's getting told at home what to do and in the dojo when I was teaching.
Yes.
No, my husband is a police officer, so he has a base fitness that's required. Always played rugby, so he's quite a hunky man.
And so do you do like debriefings after events and you've got clients that go through your coaching programs? Do you often use your partner as a sounding board and decompress? Because as a life coach, you're often hearing a lot of significant trauma and personal stories. Do you share them with them at all, or do you work through them on your own and chuck them in the whaka bucket and realise that you've done what you can to help? And
I realised over this work that holding safe space is my superpower. And holding space is a skill because you do not give advice. It's not therapy. And I tend to ground a lot. I have a sauna in my backyard, the German that I am, in an ice bath.
I've seen it. It looks amazing.
I actually basically take time out just to, fill my cup again and let go of some of the energy that was coming at me. And that's something I've gotten really good at, especially after what I've gone through. But I don't really share a lot of it because it's A, confidential, and B, it's the same as what he might experience on his job. Certain things, stuff is heavy and stuff is going on, but you don't share it.
Oh, see, I would love to have a partner that was telling me stories about the PI world or what was going on. I've always had a bit of a fixation on that. And a woman I know's partner is a PI. And of course, he's the same. He cannot talk.
Exactly.
But by privacy reasons.
Yeah. So it's a good way too. I mean, we often do things outside, sit and do a sauna and be quiet, and you can tell energy is released, which is nice. I guess being grounded comes with that work. That's the best way I can explain it. Spending time in nature.
So how did you celebrate being nominated in the top 10 voices globally?
I haven't actually
business?
yet because I've been so busy, and I took on 2 new authors to work with, which was amazing. So I haven't actually stopped.
Well, you need to. So
Yes.
I guess this is
This is a good way to do that.
A award which is just phenomenal from New Zealand globally. It's
Thank
just
you.
absolutely incredible.
And I might go and be able to, if that award comes through, I'll be in the UK because I'm going to Europe in October. So I might fly across and be able to be there in person, which is nice.
How fabulous! We'll have to all track that. That's for sure. If you had something to say to your younger self, the girl back in Germany, what would you say to her? the 16-year-old, 17-year-old.
Stop thinking about what other people think of you. And my grandmother was actually right along, bless her. She used to say, the older I get, the less fucks I give. Sounds much better in Germany, but...
What does it say? I'd love to hear the German version.
Je älter ich werde, desto weniger interessieren mich Sachen. For those who speak German. Some may not. But that's actually true and my next book is called Fuck Menopause, because there is a mindset shift on not just being symptoms and hot flashes and all that. We all go through that, and some of the things I wish I wouldn't have experienced. But there's a mindset again where you go, that fuck it bucket is brilliant. To go, you know what? I can either let this define me, or I'm going to just throw it out the window and do me.
Menopause is such a it's so topical. Everyone's talking about menopause at the moment, and I think there's menopause too at times actually.
Men or pause, yes.
Yeah, but the man pausing and not knowing what to bloody do. But yeah, hot flushes aren't fun.
No, they're not. And certain other things you had that come with it. She's gone to town on me, but the humour comes through eventually, and you go, well, I'm just going to move on, be me.
Yeah, see, I'm a bit of an enigma because having had cancer and being on hormonal treatment for life, it means that anything to do with like a menopausal remedy is taken off the table.
Yeah.
Because of the risk factor. And I've just reached a place where I've thought, chuck that in the fucker bucket. I'm about to roll the dice and actually reach for a product, because I would rather, or two or three, because I would much rather have an amazing rest of my life in every essence, and it be less in duration than longer in duration with some symptoms that are impactful. And I've had, varying family members go, oh, you can't do that. I'm about to do that in the coming week actually, and say this is what we're doing, because I'm not doing that anymore, and I'm prepared for the consequence of that choice.
Wow, that is a big step.
So wish me well, and I'm really confident that that I'm going to be fine, and I'm just going to be more joyous and bring more joy, and be louder and prouder too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next book, are we at draft stage? We're
at draft stage. I think the final chapter where the book stalled last year was my journey with HRT. Which half of it I chucked in the bucket, the others I sort of reintroduced. And obviously the body doesn't do what it wants to do, and doing karate at 50 has been one of those things. But making peace with it and going, well, there are some changes, but there's certain things that I will not stop just because that's what I do and I want to enjoy life. And I think we've come a long way on A, the awareness, and B, things are changing on what options are out there. We're actually very much leading in that conversation as a whole group about menopause at work, brain fog, not just hot flashes and hormone therapy. There's way more things like that. And we're not small men. So a lot of the research that's been done on how to train, how to eat, what to take was done on men.
Men or rats?
Yeah,
lab rats.
So it's an interesting time, but I think we are grouping, and we're becoming more unapologetic on how we show up. And I would like to do a toast to that to anyone out there who is melting in a boardroom. Get a bright fan.
Absolutely.
Go and fan.
Get a fan. Take your clothes off. Take half your clothes off.
So yeah, we'll see where that leads me. But yeah, I'm quite excited. And the cover is pink, of course.
Brilliant. And so how long does it take to write corporate Rewilding? How long did that take you from start to getting ready to publish?
It was really a 6 months journey. The bulk of it was written within a week, to be honest. Where it was difficult was the part of where you start excavating your personal story. And I realized there's so many things on how to write a book in 30 days, all that hoo-ha. It's the part where you're going into your personal story that makes it difficult. And I thought I had it all figured out. I've had 10 years experience in publishing. Piece of cake. But I was on my knees because you're constantly wondering, am I going to go there? How am I going to frame it? How much is too much? How deep do I go with this? So this is, again, how I ended up helping others with that journey, because the part of getting your story out is the hardest and where most people give up.
My partner's really disappointed, Tina, because I read your book in one day, and I
Wow.
opened the cover. I'd had a gastro bug, and I literally was under the duvet, and I couldn't put the book down. And he wrote a book during COVID, and I haven't got past the first
Oh, dear.
page. And so he's like, how does this woman get to take precedence over my book? Which
Potent
yeah.
topic, I guess.
So you've got book coaching packages,
Yes.
where you are encouraging women and men to share their stories,
Yeah.
and come on a journey where you coach them. And as part of that, writing the book, is there life coaching as part of that?
It eventually comes through, because by going deep into your story, there is often trauma that gets rehashed. There's also limiting beliefs and stories. There's a lot of fear around telling your story, because you're putting your heart and soul into pages. It's not an Instagram story that disappears tomorrow. It's a legacy piece. And often the authors that tend to find me are a bit like myself. They've gone through hell, and they've come through it, walked through the fire, and they've burst something completely different as a result of that. And I think it's a beautiful thing, because if you create a business or a service or a product based on your own experience, it's so authentic and honest. It will always be you as the brand. You cannot delineate it.
No.
If you have the courage to do that, then those books are a real connection to your reader and to your ideal clients as well, because your clients are a former holographic version of who you used to be. And it's interesting, you attract those same types of people to you, and it humbles me to be able to do this work.
And look, I really admire it. It's been something I've been wanting to do for so long. My life story will be a Mills and Boone, a Rocky Horror Picture Show, and everything in between, and all the versions of myself that have been through, I guess, the life that I've lived. And I had an author on a few weeks ago, and he's been encouraging me to write my story for over a year.
Good.
He's been quite persistent, and that's done through like a coaching group where you get peer support to do it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, really admire the work that you do, the power you bring to any event, and you know the power of the sisterhood is very much alive and kicking in Auckland.
Yes.
Certainly in this room, I really value our friendship. And the way you show up on the daily, inspiring woman to be bold, be loud, and go after your big wild dream,
Yep.
as if there's no tomorrow. I look forward to every day your LinkedIn posts, which
That's a
are,
good thing.
are loud and
Colourful.
colourful. And I really appreciate that you are donating an amazing book package for our upcoming auction. And if you can just maybe have a little chat about what that includes, would be amazing.
It's a cause dear to my heart. I have had family members who've been through cancer. I admire your story, so I take my hat off to you, and I can't wait to read your book. The package that I donated is a 6-month journey for somebody to go and do a complete blueprint and a book map, to go and write the book with them for the first 3 months, to help them how to position themselves from a marketing point of view, all the nitty-gritty Amazon KDP stuff and print brokering and all the fun stuff, including your marketing, and also how you're going to position yourself as an author. Because once you've written that, you have content for Africa. You've got possibly things that you want to do, like speaking or a podcast, because you have things to say. And it's a portal, writing a book. It's definitely a great journey, and I love to whoever is going to donate. They've helped a good cause, but they're also going to further wherever they are on their journey.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful for the package that someone is going to really, I guess, unlock their own potential.
Yes.
And become louder and prouder through that process.
Which is what it's all about, and that's what I live and breathe. It's the support, and it's the growing together. There is enough for everyone to go around, and it's time to do it together. It's much more fun. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much, Tina, for your time and joining me on the podcast today, and really reminding us what we need to do, and that is to chuck in the whakabucket more of what no longer serves us.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. And podcasts are something I could do all day, every day, because it's good to be able to share your vibe and what you're here to do. So thank you.
Absolutely. So if you've been too much or not enough, remember you're just on time. To everyone, love your life and own your journey.